by coaching. I'm streaming. All right, welcome back to my desktop. We're going to be putting all the junglers into classifications today, and hopefully that will give you a better idea of differentiating them, kind of outlines a little bit of how they want to do their pathing, what they want to spend their time on, their goals, and give you a better idea of how to go about things on them because it can be a damn shame whenever you're trying to do one thing on a champion and they're supposed to be doing an entirely different thing. So, starting off with these different classes, let's go ahead and kind of outline what they are. So, with the Juggernaut class, this is going to be champions that for their jungle path, they're going to primarily farm. Their goals in the game is usually going to be to outgrow the enemy, and then the way that they have their impact is going to be by winning these skirmishes that will inevitably lead to, um, if we were to just work our way back with advantage, we would get control over the enemy jungle, and then that will allow us to pressure the lanes, and then we'll be able to take the objectives, scuttle our camps, etc., etc. Because with those sort of champions, they have a lot of free stats with them. So the outgrow part becomes this almost by default sort of play style where you're trying to get more farm than the enemy jungler, deny them theirs. Once you have that 1 or 2 XP lead, then you can start spinning it more aggressively. So they're very akin to the ramp junglers if you watch the other video. Alrighty, and then for assassins, the assassins' first goal, or what they want to do with their jungle pathing, you would think it would be go kill the bad guy. No, we want to farm. Assassins are weak early. This is always the duality of them. And then once they get their juice, then they can start being aggressive. So what's the assassin's goal? It's not to attack the enemy. And you would think it's to kill them, but what your actual goal is to punish the enemy. Every single assassin is going to be balanced around waiting for the enemy to make a mistake and then being there and capitalizing on it. So where you farm every single jungle camp, you're then in the river. But the thing to do is nothing at all. You just simply exist in the river. If Lucian dashes forward, you kill him. If he doesn't dash forward, you do nothing, and then you reset. Full clear down, do it again, do it again, do it again. And then, let's see, our goal is to punish, and then when we have advantage, the way that we exploit that as we progress in the game is to use the Fog of War. And with the Fog of War, you're there, you're strong, enemy shows up, boom, you insta-kill them. That's going to allow you to get a pick and then take the objective. And then with the objectives, the dragons, the barons, etc., your team pushes, and then you end the game that way. Assassins generally have an okay team fight as well, but there's these different stages of the game where you want to get picks. Anyways, bruisers. The bruiser champions, they don't farm and they don't perma gank. What they do is something in between. Because a bruiser is a mix of two type of champions. Like one guy that deals damage and one guy that takes damage. So it's kind of like a tank mixed with a carry. So the bruisers actually play on tempo. And what this means is you fight on level spikes. The bruisers get a lot for free. Think champions like Vi, J4. They get a lot packed into their levels and don't necessarily need items. And even when they get them, they're going to get ruby crystals and longswords. That's it. That's the extent of what you get. You never get these big spikes like Karthus Jungle gets Faded Ashes, Dark Seal, Sorkpin Boots. He's online. Vi gets a Tunneler and then another Tunneler. Like, it doesn't matter. And then, so you farm on tempo. You fight on the level spikes. The first instance of this is always going to be level 4 on Scuttle Crab and then level 5 on turn 2. You full clear once, reset, clear 2 to 3 camps, you're level 5, and then you skip the camps, and you just go do a play. Gank a lane, do the dragon, something. So the way they spin that lead is similar to the Juggernauts, um, where you gain control. The control aspect is usually in the early to mid game, because your champion is there, and the enemy has to deal with it. Jarvan is bot lane ganking. Do something about it, you know? It's up to the enemy to make something happen, either directly against you or indirectly. You gank bot lane, they take void grubs. It forces some sort of gain state. It forces some sort of motion. And if the enemy makes mistakes along the way, then you can really overtake them um, by out macroing them. So by out macroing, you take fights with numbers advantage. You can usually force fights on these bruiser champions come mid to late game, and then you your late game goal, they out macroing, trying to do the things like is usually going to be a team fight. The bruisers have to team fight mid game because they do not go to late game. The team fight mid game, um, push game state, and then get the objective and push to end the game. If you're not doing that, you're not doing nothing. You're just getting outscaled and farming for no reason. Especially as you enter the mid game, bruisers are going to be stuck at 2 items, and yeah, there's nothing to do. Carry junglers. Obviously, their goal is to farm. Bank champions like Kindred Graves, Nidalee, Talia. Their goal is to farm. You don't see them as much because of the jungle XP. Jungle XP flattens things out, so it's very hard for a carry jungler to actually get a lead. Think of a champion like Karthus that's about one of the only ones you see because he can play so aggressively and he has such high variance, you know? He can roll with the punches. Your goal is to out-tempo the enemy. More often than not, these champions have the ability to farm faster than the enemy since they index always into all damage, and they're usually ranged, then you have a natural advantage against any of the melee champs because you show up at the same time, but you can throw abilities at the enemy, and they can't do anything about it without all-inning. So you out-tempo the enemy, you uphold the position, and you kind of play a hard neutral. So play neutral. You show up, exist. If the enemy all-ins, you flash backwards, and you probably kill their whole team. And then the way that you compound your lead is by successfully farming, successfully taking things that the enemy can't deal with or is too slow to do anything about, and then smashing into the enemy with your team. So when it comes to the late game, pretty much the same deal. You have to team fight with the boys. If you're a carry champion, you want your team to go in first, and then you kill everyone. So got to be playing with them. And then the exact opposite, we have the helpers. Think Amumu, Rammus, Nunu, tanks usually. But then there's also champs like Ivern. Their jungle pathing is going to be play on tempo as well. Usually that means mostly full clearing in the early game because they're weaker, but not necessarily. And then our goal in the game itself is to not help. Shit. It is to help lanes, but listen, not like that. Not pinging to, quote, make our losing allies feel better. You have to push the game state or you're doing nothing, just like the bruisers. So you want to show up to plays that win you objectives or punish the enemy. That's good too. Nunu snowballs when Lucian dashes in. You don't take a fight top lane, level 3, because it doesn't get you the fucking dragon later. Things like that. And the way that a helper champion wins the game is through team fights. The champion's usually very tanky, usually online in the mid game. You're supposed to have a harder early game on these helper champs. That's why you don't see them too often. On top of you have to play with your team, which is royal bullshit. But yeah, in the mid game, you're strong. It's time to team fight. And that's that. Alrighty, well, all of that to finally categorize these bad boys. So, starting off with Amumu, definitely a helper. Definitely a guy that needs his team, uses his tankiness and his CC to then facilitate his team's actions. Hell, even his passive shreds the enemy's armor, or my bad, shreds their magic resist to then empower your allies' damage. Ambessa, a pretty bad bruiser. Belveth, bruiser champion, but more aggressive. Brand, easy carry. Briar, bruiser. Darius, Juggernaut. Darius is different than the other bruisers because he has so much packed in for free. It's that top lane aspect coming out. Diana, a bruiser. She could blend into assassin, but she's a bruiser. Mundo, Juggernaut. Echo, assassin. Elise, assassin. Weird. Evelyn, assassin. Hecarim, Jug. Gwen, carry. Weird. Gwen's one of the few melee carry champions. You think of her like she jungle pass like a Hecarim, but she's not Hecarim. She does get a lot for free, but she's not Hecarim. Jax, bruiser. Fiddlesticks, helper, requires teammates, punishes the enemies. Somewhat of an assassin-esque playstyle, but he's not a carry, and he's not a bruiser. He's barely not a bruiser. Ivern, helper. Jarvan, easy bruiser. Karthus, the king of carries. I'll put him right there. Mr. Kane, assassin. Kha'Zix, assassin. Kindred, carry. Lee Sin, bruiser. Lilia, bruiser. Although she farms like the Juggernaut, she is not a Juggernaut. As much as people want her to be a tanky something, she's not. She hasn't been for seasons. Master Yi, carry. One of the actually like fundamental carry champions, huh? Farm, 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 farm. And then fight. And you need your teammates to fight too. Morgana, you're so weird. You're a helper. Nefiri, bruiser. Pantheon, bruiser. Poppy, helper. Kiana, easy assassin. Aramis, okay. Rek'Sai, bruiser. Rengar, assassin. Shaco, assassin. Nocturne, bruiser. Nunu, helper. Nunu gives his team attack speed, has CC, has a shield. All of that's not very useful in a 1v1. Put the slows on top of it and all that. You get the idea. Olaf. Is Olaf a... Olaf has to be a juggernaut. He's just so bad. Olaf, you suck so much. For good reason, though. If that guy was strong in the jungle, it'd be such bullshit. Skarner, a helper. So much stats, so much HP, but it's just for his team. Sion, a weird guy, that's for sure. I don't want to look at you, Sion. I'm just going to delete you. Assassin, Talia, carry. Udyr, the quintessential juggernaut right here. Go ahead and zoom out a little. Nidalee, carry. Shyvana, jug. Nico. Huh. You're not an assassin. It's almost like a playmaking champion, so I'll put her in carry, but she's very offensive like Fiddlesticks. You get the idea. She's in between carry and helper. Sejuani, Shin, both helpers. Trundle, surprisingly a juggernaut. He's not exactly a bruiser. He doesn't have that aspect of being able to take a lot of damage for free. He has to build the defensive stats and is really good with offensive ones and gets his stats in weird ways like the other juggernauts and is originally a top laner. That's kind of a theme with a lot of these guys. Tryndamere, carry. Only farms in the early game. Only farms and then shows up. Warwick, fundamental bruiser. Deals damage, takes damage, heals quite a bit, CC's the bad guy. Super fundamental. Wukong, bruiser. Volibear, juggernaut. He can blend into bruiser, but at the end of the day, he is fundamentally a juggernaut. Despite being a bruiser in the past, that's just where his archetype / the champion is right now. Vi, bruiser. Viego's weird. Viego's definitely a carry, but he definitely blends more bruiser as well. Xin Zhao, fundamental bruiser. Yorick, jug, farm all day. Zac, a helper. And Zyra, a carry. I like this list. I like it a lot. So with these juggernauts, again, shares the aspect of usually farming quite a bit. They don't have great gank tools, so that's not their primary goal, but they have too many stats. So if they occupy the enemy jungle or fight for the objectives, that invites the enemy to come fight them rather than them taking the fight into the enemy, then they can use all those stats. Or else the enemy loses their stuff. They lose jungle camps and they lose dragons. The assassins, I think you see the picture here. They deal a lot of damage. And then the flip side is that they're very squishy. They can take a lot of damage. So they have to choose the right times to go in. They have tools to do that. They have tools to mitigate. Whenever they could take damage, Elise Repel dodges everything. Evelyn ulti dodges everything. Kayn ulti dodges everything. Kha'Zix ulti dodges auto attacks at least. Rengar W can heal his whole health bar. So they have stuff. They have tools and tricks, to dodge damage, but you have to use them precisely. Bruisers, Ruby Crystal Longsword, baby, and all its different variants. And then sometimes with like the AP champs, Lilia, Rumble, you know? Ruby Crystal Amp Tome with a Leandries. Oh, mercy me. But they're all achieving pretty similar things. Farm until they're strong, and then run into a bad guy and force a fight. Because the Bruisers, unlike the Juggernauts, have tools to help them force fights. Vi ulti, Vi Q, Warwick ulti, Lee Sin kick, Jarvan EQ, Nocturne ulti, Pantheon stun. There's always something to it. Sometimes there's more reactive bruisers like Briar, Lilia, where they're farming, and then once something happens, then they move towards it. Briar ulti is way better used reactively than it is proactively. And then same with Lilia. She builds up her movement speed in the jungle and then bolts towards a play when it happens. For the carry junglers, Karthus, Brand, a lot of the mages and a lot of the ADCs, and then their melee variants like Master Yi and Viego. But they're farming basically every camp every single time. They have the tools to zone the enemy. So imagine Karthus finishes his clear at 3 minutes, and you're still doing your camps as Vi jungle. Karthus gets to get into the river first and then throw Qs at you if he has vision. That's the advantage of the carries. Some of these champions that invade, like Kindred in Italy. Where is Graves? Get up here. Kindred in Italy Graves, the quintessential get a red buff and go in the enemy jungle. They can do more offensive moves earlier because they have these dashes over the wall. So then they can use that to abuse the enemy jungler, fight, and then take their camps. Or force a weird play. That play happens, they're fighting, they're throwing abilities, they're throwing auto attacks. The play dissipates, and then they go back to full clear. But they're still playing for the camps, and it's very hard for them to die because they have this fundamental range advantage. And then we got the helpers. Do you see a lot of CC down here? Look at this shit. Like, if you're lame as fuck, yeah, helper is the role for you. Yep. LS be like, all these champs are fun to play. I love it. I love when the enemy has no fun at all. Awesome. Shout out to Amumu. But all these champions share CC, tankiness, usually healing, and then some sort of big tool to facilitate their team to attack the enemy. The basic one's just going to be Amumu. You flash ulti, your team kills everyone. Every one of these champions have some sort of tool like that to set up a big play. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about these. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think a video like this is useful, because it's definitely different for me to do. And yeah, hope you learned something from it. I don't know, buy coaching. See you in the next one. Peace. Tier list, coaching VODs, guides, and more on the Patreon. Check it out. Click on it.